Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for the Tel Aviv University and the Iranian Center here for having this lovely group of people here, and I've been very grateful for having been invited. Thank you. One of the most intriguing byproducts of Iran's revolution has been the explosion of women's writings both inside Iran and abroad. Iranian Jewish women have also been writing and publishing in unprecedented numbers in the past couple of decades. In fact, in these past 20 years, Iranian Jewish women have written and published more than they ever did in the last 2,500 years of their uninterrupted presence in Iran. And they have been writing about themselves, which is itself a yet historical novelty. And they have stories to tell about their lives, histories, beliefs, griefs, joys, and their share of existence on Iranian soil. Yet, ironically, they write not in Persian, and not for the Persian-speaking readers, along whose lives these stories took shape. They write outside of Iran, and in English, French, Hebrew, Italian, and other languages. They write novels and memoirs, through which we get windows into the Jewish lives in Iran, only to find out how rich in culture and tradition they are, and how diverse and nuanced each narrative proves to be. It is with the unfolding of two of these narratives that the present paper engages itself. I shall discuss two memoirs here, produced by Iranian Jewish women. Here at last, through their autobiographical writings, Iranian Jewish women take agency over their life stories. Believing that these stories matter, they write their life narratives and thus contribute to larger efforts undertaken by Iranian women towards self-representation, setting their images in their own words and in their own terms. The first memoir to be discussed is Farideh Goldin's Wedding Song, Memoirs of an Iranian Jewish Woman, which was published in the year 2003. The setting for Goldin's memoir is her childhood neighborhood, the Jewish ghetto in Shiraz, the Mahalleh. The memoir takes us into the heart of that segregated, impoverished corner in Shiraz in the 1960s. Farideh Goldin vividly paints the unfolding lives of these ghetto-dwelling Jews as they have lived for centuries within a majority Muslim country. She describes how members of this closed community lived with a dual consciousness of themselves as Jews and also as Iranians. They speak their own language, Judi, which was shared with ghetto residents in other Iranian cities, such as Hamadan. As observant Jews, they performed religious prayers, sang wedding songs and other rituals in Hebrew, and they spoke Persian outside of the gates of the Mahalleh. In her memoir, Farideh Goldin captures a variety of languages and voices. She records all forms of speech, rhetorical modes, languages, and dialects that people in her neighborhood used in their daily lives. Further, through silence and absence of speech, she gives voice to the quiet, voiceless females in her ghetto. One such person is her own mother. Goldin's memoir can be read as a study on the lives of 4 generations of Iranian Jewish women as they are introduced to us. They are given their own distinct voices. Let us begin with her voiceless mother. As a young girl of 8 to 10, Goldin is acutely aware of her mother's unhappiness in life. And Goldin observes how her mother carries her sorrow in silence. Her mother, Farideh tells us, has been married off to Farideh's father, who had come from Shiraz to Hamadan Mahalleh looking for a bride. The young bride of 13 is thus uprooted against her will and planted into the soil and dirt of her new home, the Mahalleh in Shiraz. Feeling abandoned by her own family, she never finds roots or happiness here. She was brought here, Farideh tells us, to scrub, to clean, to raise kids, and to take care of the never-ending needs of her manipulative mother-in-law, the 2 unmarried sisters-in-law, 1 unmarried brother-in-law, as well as her increasingly unapproving and unsupporting husband. Her mother grieves her life of female slavery in silence. Her upbringing in the Hamadan ghetto is looked upon as inferior to the lifestyle in her Shirazi ghetto, where the matriarch of the household, her mother-in-law, this is Faride's grandmother, boasts of being the widow of a dayan, a judge. Never an equal among other women in her ghetto, mother is resigned. There is no other way. Accept it, she says. She is the silent Jew who learns to keep a low profile when facing hostile surroundings, and she hides. She is paralyzed with her fears and with her uncertainties. Faride's mother is thus marginalized within a marginalized community that itself lives in the confines of a walled ghetto. She lives in a ghetto within a ghetto, and she withdraws deeper and deeper into her silence. Her longing for approval and her fears of ill treatment and rejections are all overshadowed by her longing to belong. She is the reed cut off from reed bed, lamenting separation. Eventually, she leaves Iran to live in Israel. Faride forges emotional bonds with a strong woman in her household, her grandmother. Grandmother is the matriarchal power of her large household, and she further enjoys respect and obedience from all within her ghetto. As a widow of a community leader, she exerts leadership of sorts. She is established and she is firmly grounded in her ghetto. She carries a rooted self-awareness about her, with which she dictates to other female members of the Mahalle. She is strongly protective of her commune and its ways. She even has a voice outside of her ghetto. Hers is the voice of an old, traditional Jewish settlement in Iran demanding tolerance and acceptance from the larger Muslim community. Once, during a rare excursion outside the ghetto into a Shirazi bazaar, with young Faride hanging tightly to her grandmother's chador, Khanum Buzurg and Faride passed a tea house where several Muslim men sat idly outside smoking water pipes. The men make passes at Khanum Buzurg, cracking offensive jokes at her as they eye her young budding granddaughter. They laugh out loudly. Grandmother, fed up with such discriminatory insults and disrespect, responds to their vulgarity in her heavy, thick Judy accent, which embarrasses Faride to death. This encounter scares her, and she runs away out of breath. This is Faride does. Goldin explains the day out shopping with her grandmother as one of the seldom occasions outside the ghetto, exploring the unknown. Amid childish excitement, she is also frightened at the idea of getting lost. The scene described here is curiously reminiscent of an almost exact situation written in the reverse by Simin Daneshvar in a short story titled Bazar Vakil. Daneshvar, a famous Iranian novelist, herself from Shiraz, writes about a little girl tightly holding on to her nanny's chador as she follows her in the narrow, crowded alleys of the famous Bazar Vakil in Shiraz. At one point, lost in the excitements of toys, the little girl lets go of the chador and soon finds herself hopelessly lost in that unfriendly crowd of passers-by with stern and serious faces. Terrified and utterly helpless, she begins to cry when a kind older man notices her and walks to her offering help. "Don't be afraid, little girl, there's nothing to worry about. I'll take you home." The girl looked at him and her horror grew. She said to herself, "This is him. This is the man my nanny was talking about. He is the Jew who snatches Muslim children and takes them to their quarters in the Mahalle and kills them, makes bread with their blood." In Goldin's memoir, she presents a counter-narrative to Daneshvar's dominant one cited above. This is how Goldin describes her fear of the other when she, Faride Goldin, fears getting lost. "The world outside our immediate neighborhood frightened me. My parents, family members, and children my own age had told me repeatedly that evil lurks outside the gates of the Mahalle. Genteel-looking grandfathers enticed young children with drop-covered candy and kidnapped them into slavery. Nice old ladies, covered modestly in their chadors, asked for directions and make the children disappear. Kidnappers corner children, and they take them by force for prostitution. In another scene, second graders surround Farideh, no more than 10 years old in this scene, in their new neighborhood outside the Mahalle, still in Shiraz. These are Muslim girls, curious about the new kid on the block, curious enough to talk to her and make her acquaintance, but not curious enough to come close and perhaps make her friendship. This is Farideh talking. We talked a bit longer from the distance. I assumed that they worried that my touch would defile them. I was afraid to ask for a piece of bread or a glass of tea. What if the food wasn't kosher? What if they poisoned it to kill me? Would they allow me to touch their utensils anyway? They surely feared that I would make them najas. This is what we call seeing yourself as the other, internalizing. Mistrust and fear of the other have reinforced lives of segregation for many generations, to be sure. Yet despite discriminations and daily violations of rights against Jews and Jewish communities in Iran, as reported in Goldin's memoir, Goldin is also quick to give credit where credit is due. I'm quoting, "It was a Muslim man who trusted my father as a boy with a bag of gold, his first real assignment as a goldsmith. Years later, father still remembered that while he suffered backstabbings from certain family members and from his own fellow Jews, it was the support of a trusting Muslim man that set him up on his career. And father never forgot." Goldin's grandmother represents for her the rooted Jewish Iranian woman, one who provides spiritual substance to her Jewish family. Her mother, on the other hand, represents the non-belonging, passive Jew resigned to the task of the daily maintenance and preservation of their ghetto existence. The memoirist herself, Farideh, stands for another generation of Iranian Jewish women, one that steps out of the confines in search of independence. Whereas Farideh's upbringing prepares her for a passive traditional life of early marriage, child raising, and domesticity, she dreams of a life outside the ghetto and its bondage. She is an avid reader. She manages to go to college and to educate herself, and gradually she prepares to travel to the U.S. in pursuit of higher education. She knows she wants to leave Iran because she no longer belongs. And today, Goldin's Iranian-American daughters living in the U.S. know very little about Iran. As members of the fourth generation, they do not read Persian and wonder if someday they will ever visit Iran. The lives of the four generations of Iranian Jewish women are outlined through four spheres of existence. Number one, the communal social sphere occupied by the grandmother within the ghetto, providing substance and self-awareness and spiritual thought. And two, the private inner sphere of the unfulfilled, withdrawn mother, preoccupied with the daily maintenance of the ghetto life, with no defined meaning for her life. And the third one, the movement into the public sphere, stepping out into the larger Iranian community and beyond by Farideh herself. And the fourth one, the Jewish Iranian woman on the global sphere today, represented by Farideh's daughters, who were given chances for education and social reform, never to be confined by ghetto binds or the restrictions of the Islamic Republic. A closer study of another memoir by another Jewish Iranian woman reminds us of how diverse and non-monolithic Jewish lives in Iran are. In her Journey from the Land of No, A Childhood Caught in Revolutionary Iran, published in the year 2004, Roya Hakakian portrays a dramatically dissimilar and yet common account of Jewish life in Iran. The family residence, by contrast to that of Goldin's conservative ghetto neighborhood in Shiraz, is situated in western Tehran, a cosmopolitan city in the 1970s, where Jewish families were by far more economically integrated and socially accepted than in any other part of Iran. Hakakian's parents are both college educated. Farideh's mother, you recall, was married off at the age of 13. Her education was abruptly aborted. Her father also had no chance for higher schooling and education because he had to get to work from a very young age. Numerous domestic responsibilities weighed on Goldin's shoulders as the oldest daughter with younger siblings, and while Goldin was presumably being prepared for an early marriage and traditional female roles, Roya Hakakian, on the other hand, was the youngest child of the family, the only daughter with no responsibilities. Both are pretty loquacious young girls growing up. They are verraj. However, Goldin seems to learn to swallow her words and her fury and to keep her silence in order to survive in peace. This is a lesson she has learned resentfully from her mother. Roya, by contrast, becomes the spokesperson for her classmates as they rebel against Mrs. Muqaddam, the Muslim schoolmaster assigned to Roya's all-girls Jewish school. This is immediately after the revolution. Roya describes herself as Iranian first, a secular Iranian girl who has witnessed the revolution, and this is how she begins to write her memoirs. Yet gradually she realizes how much more there was to her story. One afternoon, Roya is dismissed from school, and she begins to roam about Tehran. When she comes close to the gates of Tehran University, she is 12 years old at the time, and she chooses to walk bare feet. She carries her tennis shoes on her back. I'm quoting, "I wanted hardness to seep through my skin, while Tehran's tenderness enveloped me. Tehran had never failed me. The music of the water in the canals, the cry of the peddlers, the generosity of its vendors giving away a hearty sampling of cooked beets or fava beans to a lost girl." This is a far cry from the scene in Wedding Song, where little Goldin is struck by horror at the idea of getting lost in the bazaar among the Muslim crowd. Or again, so dramatically apart from the scared little Muslim girl who fears being kidnapped and murdered by Jews when she was lost in Bazar Vakil. Roya here seems to be blending effortlessly. Her presence alone on this diverse and colorful landscape of Upper Tehran in that afternoon in 1978 is seamless, and it seems very natural, deceivingly natural. Tehran was fast heading towards major shake-ups, and the aftershocks were to uproot the Hakakians and thousands others for good. Major hostilities toward the Jews and other non-Muslim communities of Iran were soon unleashed, with tragic results for Iran itself, who lost its vibrant multiculturalism and ethnic religious diversity that it once possessed. Roya reaches home. I'm quoting, "I finally had a view of the building across from our home. Next to Down with the Shah on the wall, a new graffiti appeared, Juhuds get lost." 40 years earlier in Khonsar, where Roya's father had come face to face with anti-Semitism in his childhood, the encounter had also taught him a memorable lesson in decency and humility. On rainy days, father was told to stay home, lest a splash off his body sully a Muslim classmate. Once, when the rain had not stopped for 4 days, his mother went to meet the district superintendent from the greater Khonsar and begged to let her son attend school. Moved by her appeal for her son's education, the superintendent stormed into my father's classroom, interrupted the lesson, and demanded that someone fetch him a glass of water. The class representative obliged. Then the superintendent handed the glass to father and ordered him to drink a sip. Eager to please, father took a gulp. Then the superintendent grabbed the glass, drank the rest, slammed the empty glass on the bench, and roared, "If that water was good enough for me, it's good enough for all of you. From now on, Haq Nazar will be in this class every day, all kinds of weather." That message in humanity and humility, taught in a small classroom in Khonsar, was now lost on Roya's neighborhood when the inscription, "Juhud get lost," was punctuated by a sign from the Nazi days, a swastika. In Goldin's memoir, when Faride's father is finally able to move his family out of the Shiraz ghetto and into a more integrated part of the city, the Goldins also faced an unwelcoming, frightening swastika sign installed on the neighborhood window. Across their alley, a rude awakening into their ever-segregated status. And years later, when the Islamic Revolution robbed him of all his hard-earned possessions, Mr. Goldin finally broke down, consumed with despair, held his head tightly into his hands and sobbed violently for a long time. He sank into himself, shrinking and sobbing. When Roya's father viewed the swastika, this reserved, logical, and calm schoolmaster is struck with sudden madness. Unlike Mr. Goldin, Mr. Hakokian bursts out of the room into the courtyard, where he whirls and raves unabashedly, unbuttoning his shirt, baring his torso, and taking off his pants as he spins with frightening madness, all in front of Roya's eyes. The reactions of both fathers are stunning and memorable in the eyes of their daughters. Both episodes scorched unforgettable images in their memories. Something shattered inside Roya. Earlier in her narrative, Roya Hakokian, who was quite comfortable in the houses of her Muslim friends and felt very integrated with them, had reminded us of how she felt when in the company of the other. I'm quoting, "Being among Jews," she tells us, "was effortless, like being comfortable in your pajamas. Being among Muslims was like being in my party dress. The fabric itched, the zipper pinched, and I had to adjust myself to fitting into something less familiar. It took effort being in it, but I liked the way it changed me. I liked how I looked." Yet on that one afternoon in Tehran, something shattered in Roya, and that moment proved a turning point in the lives of the Hakokians. The family soon prepared to leave Iran. One voice unheard and one story untold is that of a young Iranian Jewish woman, political activist, who stayed in Iran and whose promising young life was brutally cut short in the prisons of the Islamic Republic. Edna Sabet, an engineering student turned political activist after the revolution, was arrested in 1982 at the age of 26. Her repeated torturous interrogations and her eventual execution in the fall of 1983 were later reported by her loyal cellmate and recorded by international organizations on human rights. Prison officials and government authorities claim no knowledge in this case and continue to cover up this crime. Sadly, Edna's family also has maintained a painful silence on her life and death as it grieves in private. Edna's story, and perhaps those of other Jewish political activists, thus remain untold and shrouded in silence. The few cases highlighted in this study serve as examples of how diverse and nuanced the lives of Iranian Jewish women and their stories have been. Yet what remains a common thread running through them all is the fact that the Islamic Republic in Iran, by its exclusionist nature towards Iran's religious minorities, has ruthlessly cut deep into the very fabric of our society, depriving Iran itself of its legacy of cultural richness, ethnic and religious diversity, and multi-layered social life. Thank you.